YouTube, we have the biggest rule change in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! That is going to be put into the World Championship. And then it's going to be put into the game for all of us in the TCG. But actually, it's not. It was a mistake. But actually, it will be in the future. They can't seem to make their mind up. Sir, you've been in a coma for 12 hours. Oh no, has anything changed in regards to Yu-Gi-Oh's time rules? No. See, it's funny because now this meme is out of date from part 2 of the saga. Because initially, they changed the rules, but then they changed them back. But then they changed them back again because it was, guys, new time rules for the World Championship. Part 2. Guys, there's new championship for the World Championship and for the rest of the regions. And then part 3. Guys, the new time rules was posted as a mistake. There isn't going to be the new time for the new time rules in all the regionals and the YCSs. Part 4. Guys, these are not going to be the changes for the time rules. Yet. Yet. Next update. If you go into time, Konami just kills you. Well said, Gage. Well said. So let's get into this. What has happened? Let's just watch Jesse's video. If anyone's going to be able to explain this in a nice, cohesive, eloquent way, let's take it up with Jesse.
Pretty much the same. Yu-Gi-Oh! Time rules have just changed drastically. And I don't know if tournaments will ever be the same. So this came as a little bit of a surprise, as this morning, while duelists were looking at their booklet for rules for the World Championship, they noticed that the time rules weren't the same. But then when players like myself went and looked at the blog on the TCG for the regional FAQ, we noticed that those rules also changed. And they changed actually a couple days ago. And nobody realized because Konami said nothing about it. And you may think maybe the changes were small and minor.
Well, you know, they technically said it by putting in the booklet.
Form, as we know it,
that's communication, quote unquote.
So what has changed? So looking at the FAQ page here, this is for the regional FAQs in North America, which I assume will take place for every other event like
I can see you control F'ing, Jesse.
Europe side as well, and such. First thing you'll see here is in the FAQ for in-person regionals, it'll say, what happens when I'm not done my match after 50 minutes? If you've played in a regional, you'll know it's supposed to be 45 minutes. Or
5 extra minutes.
40 minutes. That's changed to 50. You say, oh, that's not that big of a change. That's nice, more time. But no, there's a reason. Because if we keep looking down at what happens, that's changed. So we go to the question, what happens when my match is not done after 50 minutes? So the longer time rounds. When time ends in the round, the match is over. Neither duelist may begin or continue any actions that take place in the game. If you're in
So that's crazy. This is a big new thing. You can't do anything. There's no end of phase anymore. There's no end of, you know, like phase. Like that's how it works, right? We don't even have Skrelp's end of chain. Do you resolve a what happens if you're mid chain link? Wait, hold on. You can't take any action? Surely you resolve a chain link, right? You just die. You die. Okay, yeah, you die. That's true. Those are game actions? There's no way the game ends mid chain link.
the battle phase, you not finish the phase. Game over. But life points don't matter either. If time expires and the match is not finished, it is a double loss. So, you were up 1-0 in the match, but time is called, you both lose. The match is considered finished.
So just to clarify, it hasn't technically been clarified in general, but most people seem to be leaning towards the fact that this is a double loss. Match loss. So there was a theory that double loss here means that both players will receive an L, right, for each of their game. So a double loss means you both lose that game. So technically, if you're 1-0 up and you get a double loss, your opponent loses 1, you lose 1, you're up a game, you win. But it seems to be kind of emphasized that it's not a double game loss, it's a match loss. So if you're up a game and the duel doesn't end, you both just lose.
Finished when one of its duels has 2 wins or other duels has 2 losses, so that is the same as before. And if the duelist has completed 3 duels without the match concluding, they go to a 4th duel. So what that means is if it's 1-1 and then a card that incites a draw happens, so say 1 day apiece for double deck out, then you go to a 4th duel instead of the match ending in a draw. And if a duelist has won,
wait, that can happen under other contexts. That means no? If the duelists have,
and then a card that incites a draw without the match concluding.
If the duelists have completed 3 duels without the match finishing, and there is oh, this is a very okay. I'm thinking of something else. This is a very niche situation, but sure.
Is if it's 1-1 and then a
Finally,
card that
game
incites a draw
3,
happens,
2.
so say 1 day apiece for double deck out, then you go to a fourth duel instead of the match ending in a draw. And if a duelist has won one duel and the match is not concluded after 50 minutes, both duelists will receive a double loss. Pretty much, draws do not exist anymore because you can never end in a 1-1 tie. Double losses will stop that, and you can never end the game with a draw because you'll go to the fourth game to decide
Hot take. Good.
it. And
They had to let intentional drawing be legal, or they had to like police it perfectly, which doesn't happen, or they had to just remove intentional draws. Losing because, you know, someone at the top tables decided to just both play really slowly and, you know, quote unquote intentionally draw, where if you look at the standings of an event, last round of Swiss, 30 tables have drawn. Have you drawn at all before in this tournament for the last 10 rounds? No. Why? This round specifically, you drew? So, in principle, that's a good thing. In principle.
I presume this will carry on to the fifth duel and so on if you keep drawing until eventually 50 minutes pass and it's a double game loss. So, this is huge. 5 more minutes in the clock is a big difference as well to mitigate this, but this means the incentive for slow playing is just like solely malicious to screw over your opponent because you cannot win on slow playing. However, it does mean that if you have a naturally long game and you have to grind through.
Can I ask a question just so I'm not getting things incorrect here? But the incentive to slow play is that you lose. Yeah, you will get a loss, but it means your opponent also loses, which is better for your tiebreakers. Isn't that technically still in your benefit? Right? Like, it isn't like it's not like there's no reason for it. Yes, technically. Right, so I mean, they haven't really removed the incentive to slow play. Better than just you losing, yes, technically. Okay. Yeah.
You might just both lose anyways, because if game 1 takes a long time and then game 2 is like that as well, what do you do? As well as some formats may require a lot of things to go on. Let's bring back to tournaments. If I'm playing a tournament mirror match and my match is only 50 minutes long, there were a fair bit of games that ended in either game 2 only, when it was 1-0, or in time. In this case, both players just lose, which is...
I don't think we have any decks in the format currently that are like that. But theoretically, if we were to get another deck like that, this would be a huge issue.
It's kind of crazy. This also means that people can't intentionally draw. Now, I want to preface this with, before this, when draws existed, you were not allowed to intentionally draw. It is considered collusion, it is cheating. However, players would do it because it is so hard to catch. And the incentive to do that is sometimes the cutoff for making the top cut of a regional or YCS was, if you drew, it was pretty much the same as winning. So when players had 2 losses in round 12 of the WCQ, drawing would guarantee their place in top cut. Now, again, not legal beforehand, but it was a problem with Konami events where people could sneakily and really hard to catch cheats to impact their performance. This rule does stop that, which is great. And while that is a great upside, again, it's not without downsides. Beyond just some games may take a long time, and games that would have really interesting natural conclusions now having anticlimactic ones, there's also the fact that people can kind of hold others hostage in phases, similar to the way they did before. Now it's even harder to maneuver around it, right? Because before, you were just screaming to the next phase, you could play the phase uninterrupted. Now, if you start comboing in, say, the battle phase or the main phase, it's way harder for the turn player to actually try and end the duel. And they have to actually end the duel, not just burn a little damage. So we may see...
So the overall, like, good thing, quote-unquote, about this is that I think it does, like, sort of help the game 1 loser a lot in some way, right? Because Thomas Rose famously, like... I'm pretty sure he, like, fully, like, quit the game because of, like, the time rule. I mean, it was definitely a huge aspect as to why he quit the game, you know? This is, like, a YCS national champion. He just hated the time rules. And one of the reasons that he would give is, like, if you win game 1, like, you are in such a massive advantage with the time rules because you play game 2, you don't need to, like, win game 2, and even if you know you're going to lose game 2, why would you scoop? You just keep playing until the clock hits like 5 minutes. You side deck, you go first in game 3, activate a burn effect, right? Like that, like winning game 1 puts you in such a massive, like, commanding position that game 3, you can really just have such a high win rate for that, you know? So in this case, you can't really do that. Because if the game ends in game 2 and you're up a game, you still want to like play faster. So you don't get that double loss. So you have to try and get to game 3. And I get there is like some benefits to this. There's always going to be benefits and negatives with this type of thing.
A ton of arguments occur as people rush to close out games that are unable to do so. I could argue, what's the incentive here for a player to try and get a double loss? And yes, the incentive is significantly less. And I do think time stalling, which again is illegal and cheating, incentivized now. In a world, it still does make sense to some degree for players to open up a double game loss if they're going to lose anyways, because then it's one less player they may have to compete with on the lower level for tiebreakers. Or
this is the thing that I don't understand. It's like, yeah, like you still would rather take down your opponent with you than just lose, right? Because if both of you lose, like ultimately that is better for you, mathematically, for your tiebreakers, right? Like, I don't feel like this actually takes away from that.
If their tiebreakers are better than your opponent, you're still technically maintaining a higher position than them. It could be the difference between 33rd.
Wait, it's the opposite?
Yes, for example.
Wait, but it was someone clarified earlier that it. Didn't someone clarify earlier that it's good for your tiebreakers? I mean, if it's bad for your tiebreakers, that's good, right? In concept, tiebreakers are based on your opponent's win rates. Yeah, so I guess if you take them down with you, then that's bad because it's good for your standing. It's bad for tiebreakers. Just use your brain. No, I can't use my brain for. I don't know the mathematical formula involved with the ELO system for Swiss rounds. I don't know that, so no, I can't do that calculation. Hence why I'm asking. Maybe you can use your brain. If you lost people with higher win rates, you're considered better. It'd be worse for your tiebreakers because you lost to someone with a worse win rate. If you take them down with you, there is one less player with more wins, so it is better for you. Yeah, that's just how it works, right? So even though your win rate is calculated by your opponent's win rate, if there's just one less person with a win in that bracket, as you, for example, if you both somehow end up on the same record, like, it is better for you, I think. Or at least it gives you a higher chance of ascending the bracket. This is very confusing.
It's not completely without flaw. Again, I just want to advocate, this is not allowed. It is technically cheating. Not technically, it is cheating. And you should not do it. If you get caught, you will get banned, and deservedly so.
Caught.
But players still do stuff, and you want to make the rules encourage a way where cheating just isn't possible. So it's still a little rough from that perspective. As of right now,
I don't think you can do anything to take away, like, some sort of malicious intent and the quote-unquote soft cheating of, like, not slow playing, but, like, playing, like, you know, at a slower pace that is just within the confines of, you know, acceptable pace, so that you do get to the game 3 and then resolve the burn effect and things like that. I don't think you can totally eliminate that.
Now, this FAQ hasn't been posted onto YCS events, so we don't know if this will pertain to the next.
I mean, you can. Ultimately, the best thing to do is just let there be a +1 turn. That's probably the best thing they could have done.
YCS, which will be Vancouver.
But, you know, Konami has to balance that with paying staff to sit in the venue for like an hour extra.
I think Latin America as well, because they're run by the
same division. Unironically, that's probably the reason.
We'll probably see this adapt over to other regions as well. We just technically aren't sure if Europe will follow this. This does seem the way that
adapting to other regions,
and it's hard to say this.
Time Wizard wants to know your location, Jesse.
This is overall a good change. Getting rid of draws will mean that people can't do collusion as much. It will mean that there's less, even if not zero, slow play intentionally for the sake of cheating. Now, there are a few other implications with this change. For one, it's tournaments should end faster. I don't know if this will be accurate, because 5 extra minutes are into the clock for every round. So for a regional or YCS, this is adding about 45 minutes to the day, and then you're still gonna have to deal with the same end around judge calls of my opponent's slow playing, they're not playing fast enough. That happens with the end of phase stuff right now. In reality, the end of phase rule we have now doesn't add that much time in actually completing the phase, because that one phase really shouldn't take that long. It's all the judge calls that occur that really extend the tournament. So with 5 extra minutes on the clock and the judge calls presumably still happening, I don't know if this will actually speed up the tournaments, but I don't know if that's the incentive here besides this or behind this rules change. The other big implication here is if you want to be good at Yu-Gi-Oh! And really thrive in these metagames, practice will matter more, as well as knowing when to concede will matter more. Because even for myself, I can pick up decks very quickly, but sometimes I'll be learning as I'm playing the tournament.
Whoa,
if that
okay.
happens, my first few rounds, I will be slower.
All right, big man.
Still won't go to time every round, don't get me wrong, but it does mean that I'm moving at a slower pace than I would if I were, say, an expert with the deck. Which is a shame, because then they also harshly impact my opponent, as well as impede on my own ability to succeed. And then having good knowledge of the format is also useful for knowing when a game is lost and to concede early. If you don't just concede early, you may be jeopardizing your own ability to win. Because even if you're able to win game 2, but now there's only 5 minutes on the clock, all you're doing is screwing over your opponent. You can't win anymore. And that's
Turn up, Jesse. No, he's loud enough.
Reality that
I can see it on my thing here.
The hard way in Yu-Gi-Oh. Now, the interesting thing is it goes both ways, right? So if your game 1 goes 30 minutes and game 2 you're playing and you're down game 1 and you're looking like you can win, while it looks that way that you're going to get a double game loss, if your opponent wants to win as well, they're more incentivized to scoop earlier in game 2, even if it's a less confident victory for you. And does change that sort of dynamic as well, as players have to make.
Wait, what? How does that make sense? If you're up a game, why would your opponent scoop game 2? I think I misunderstood this. I'm gonna
get a double game loss. If your opponent wants to win as well, they're more incentivized to scoop earlier in game 2, even if it's a less confident victory for you.
I need to go.
It does change that sort of dynamic as well, as players have to make judgment calls on what the higher chances are of winning. One more thing to quickly note.
Learning how to scoop early is something that
should
should have been
playing events with
in your psyche from like ages ago.
You now have to debate if it's even feasible to win matches, because your opponent understandably may have to read a lot of your cards. And if that's going to happen, you can't call in a judge on the opponent for slow play. But at the same time, it may just result in double losses. For example, when I played my Crystal Beast deck at Weiss King Kuhn, and I made a top cut at that, I went to game 3 maybe once or twice the entire tournament. I would win matches 1-0 or 2-0. It was kind of incredible, because my combos took a long time already, and the fact that I played so many cards my opponent had never seen before meant that every game took a long time. And you probably just cannot do that with these rules. So that may be more of an exception, because it's both confusing, new, or different and long. But it means that decks that have that similar sort of trait, like if you want to play a Valence deck, for example, you're going to have the same sort of problem, where you may just not feasibly be able to enter big tournaments with them, unless or in
when my opponent has to read BA cards for the first time in 10 years.
Normal dynamic of the game. Now, one last thing I would like to add as we talk about changes here. The last time time rules were changed to this degree, where wait, I just realized I see my name here. That's hilarious. The perk of winning the UDS concluded after the W25. Only duelist who won the UDS championship, Jesse Conisher, free entry. That's awesome.
Dude, can I just say, like, as cool as that is, it's insane that they like are building policy around one guy. Like, that is genuinely like ridiculous. Like, I love that he's happy about it and seal clapping, but it is kind of absurd that policy is made around one dude.
Oh, the FAQ. I'm sorry, I swear it wasn't planned. I just saw my name on there. And
mad cause bad.
The last time there was a huge change in the time rules, it was 2018, and the first event was Wise Caucus 2018. If you were at that event, you remember it did not run faster, and there were a ton of disqualifications for players playing with malicious intent. Anytime there's a change in rules, you'll find people try to abuse stuff. Again, I really do not want to advocate for this, but being aware of what could happen helps you prevent it as well, and be more diligent. So these first few tournaments with the new rules, expect them to be longer, expect judges to be a lot more sharply focused as well, and you should be as well. Be prepared to call a judge if something's uncomfortable, pace of play, or...
Okay, so if you just want to know like what the update here was, it was Konami, they went and said this is not going to happen. They made an update clarifying that this wasn't going to be the case. This was just for the World Championship. And then they made an update saying that actually... Okay, so here it is. Earlier today, the Duel Survivor Regional Qualifier season was posted with an error that included the WCS end of match, which has now been revised. There are no changes to the end of time procedures. But then they go in to say that the change to the round of time and end of match procedures will be happening at the upcoming World Championship. We are looking to apply these changes to all events in the future at a later date. So this was a mistake. We just posted it early. Like, that's all that happened here. So they are going to do this at all events. But don't forget that when it does say all events, like, this is potentially another Time Wizard situation, right? This, don't forget, is the Yu-Gi-Oh! NA account. So there's a chance where, like, you know, this only applies to NA, or which would be ridiculous. I don't think that should be the case. We really need to stop having different rules for different regions. different set releases as well, and ban lists, but that's a different discussion. So who knows if this is going to be like the case for everywhere. It might even apply to OCG, and I have a feeling it's going to apply to OCG and EU as well, because it seems weird that it would be at the World Championship. Because the World Championship is every region, every single country in the world comes to the World Championship, and they're going to be playing under these rules. So it would make sense for that to apply to all the regions in attendance, right? Like, that just feels like the logical step for me. So I don't know. These are weird changes. I'm not a good person to really give like a strong opinion or take about this, because I haven't sat down and played a TCG duel in months at this time, at this point. But ultimately, like, just looking at all of the reactions on Twitter and stuff, it's kind of just been mostly positive. At least from the people that matter, is what I've noticed. For a lot of experienced good players that I've been seeing on Twitter, a lot of them, for the most part, have been saying that this is a good change. Removing the intentional draws and incentivizing the game to play faster is a good thing ultimately. So I don't know. I guess I'll just defer my judgment to what the top players have been saying. There are and there will be like positives and negatives and drawbacks, but ultimately, like, I'd have to experience it first to really see how it feels. All right, let's take a look at some of these end of match time procedure responses and thoughts on the old Reddit. How long will the regional qualifier tournament last? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, we've read all this. You guys are probably up to date with this. Let's have a look at some of the responses. Sweet. Can I be trusted with Fusion Lacrima now? Please, I need Fusion Lacrima in order to make Rex. But that's not even the optimal line. It's still better to... Yeah. Me when I Rex for fun. This is weird. I got regionals in a couple of weeks, and I got to ask the head judge first about whether this will apply to it too, even if we're in LATAM. Well, see, this was posted 23 hours ago. What he doesn't realize is that the 12 o'clock meta, which was 4 hours ago, has confirmed that this is actually not going to be the case yet at your regional. But it will be eventually. Details to come after the World Championship. TCU events after the new time rules. I won. Too late, and you know why. This is a real Challenger Cup thing, by the way. All right. I guess I'll read some of these responses here. I'm a fan of it. It incentivizes faster play, moves people away from drawing. Can't even tell you how many times I've missed top X due to a high number of draws. There's been a hidden issue of intentionally drawing to ensure both players can make top cut, and this should eliminate that issue. Here's the thing with intentionally drawing. You either have to fully embrace it or completely eradicate it. Or I suppose even maybe there's a third option of like, maybe it's fine to initially draw, to intentionally draw. Here's the three perspectives. Intentionally drawing is bad in at least the sense of pure tournament policy. It's illegal. You're not allowed to intentionally draw. But not fully concluding a game just feels wrong from, like, I guess, a gameplay duelist perspective, right? I suppose you could look at it that way. The opposite perspective of that is intentionally drawing is bad. Because, well, I guess that was the first point, because it takes away a spot from someone else who is willing or, to fully conclude their game. But the opposite end of that is, well, technically at this stage, I've already done enough I need to top. I'm X2. Why do I need to play this last and final game to go X3 when I could just draw and we will both top? It seems like from your own personal perspective, if you're in that situation, it makes sense that you've already technically achieved and done what you needed to do. You've hit X2 with 1 round to go. So you could argue, on the opposite end of that, intentionally drawing should be fine for that reason. So that's what Magic the Gathering does. That's what Pokemon does. I don't know if Pokemon does it. I know Magic the Gathering definitely has it. You're just allowed to draw. So they just embrace it because it's impossible to police. Like, you can't, like, how do you police this? How do you police people intentionally drawing? It's just way too hard. So that's the other way to look at it. And I suppose the third one is laissez-faire, right? Just, I suppose that's kind of, the second one. Not really embracing it, but just letting it be that way. That's not really a real perspective. I think you kind of have to commit to let players draw or don't draw. I think trying to, like, because then it becomes very hit or miss, and judges either catch them or they don't catch them, because that's how it is just now. There's a lot of draws at tournaments. It's technically illegal, it's not allowed, but plenty of players do it. Some of them get caught, some of them don't. Why should this guy get to top when he intentionally drew, but this one didn't? Right? Like, this person got caught, this person didn't. It's like, how skillful are you at evading a judge call? That's not really fair, right? So I think they should commit to letting draws happen or don't let them happen. And I suppose this is what this does. It does get rid of draws in that sense. But how many games have you had game 1 go to 40 minutes? Because now most people just ask their opponent to surrender game 2, since it will be an immediate double loss if you can't finish a game in 10 minutes, 2 games if your opponent wins the second game. Prisoner's dilemma could lead to bad blood between players. Of course, slow playing already did that. This is very true, actually. It's the prisoner's dilemma, isn't it? Like, I'm winning game 1. There's not a lot left on the clock. It's like, bro, please, like, just scoop and we go to game 3. You know what I mean? Because, like, if you don't scoop now when we play this game out and the game ends, because there's no end of match procedure anymore, it's literally just the duel ends mid-chain link, right? They got rid of end of phase. There's no end of phase anymore. It's just, the game ends mid-chain link. We still haven't got an answer for that, by the way. But it's like, it's just a lose-lose for your opponent, right? Because if they scoop that game, at least there's a chance they can win game 3 and get a and have a chance, or they just keep playing and you lose, they lose, everyone loses. Like, I don't know. It's a bit of a weird situation. If you win the first round but can't finish the second one ASAP, you're fucked. This is kind of stupid. You're incentivized to throw game 2 and hope for a quick game 3. This is kind of the issues with modern Yu-Gi-Oh, right? It's like, it just doesn't feel like 50 minutes is enough time to really play out like a full duel. You know, unless there's like full blowouts or something, or sometimes depending on your deck. It doesn't seem like Yu-Gi-Oh in general, modern Yu-Gi-Oh caters too well to just full 50-minute duels playing out. Ultimately, like, I think a lot of your deck building and, yeah, your deck building should kind of dictate to you how important this is to you. If this is going to be such a... Ultimately, like, you can give feedback, you can give criticism, but ultimately, like, the biggest thing about this is if it matters so much to you, if it's that big of a deal to you, you just pick a deck around this. Pick a deck that finishes quick games, and then you never have to deal with end-of-match procedures. It seems weird and crazy that, oh, I don't get to play my favorite deck because of arbitrary time rules. I suppose they're not arbitrary. I mean, they are just the rules. But yeah, like, if your favorite deck just goes to time every single duel, you just have to weigh up the positives and negatives. Do I play my pet deck that I have fun with, that I like playing the most, or do I play a deck that gets me through a round, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, I guess that's really what it comes down to. Yeah, poor Josh can't play Paleo anymore. Even in the current timers, it makes sense to scoop an unwinnable or hard to win game 2 to ensure you have time for game 3 to combo and close it out. This does seem to reinforce making that judgment harder. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's already the case anyway, right? It might always just make sense to instantly scoop game 2 if you want the dice roll, just so you have 2 shots at going first. That way you have a lower chance of getting 2 losses. I mean, you should still, like, try play out the game a little bit, but that's the thing. Like, if you play out the game a little bit, there needs to be a clear winner. Because if the duel hasn't concluded, you just lose, right? It doesn't... Correct me if I'm wrong, but you are full game on board. You are up by, you know, 7,000 life points. You literally just need to declare one attack on your opponent. Time ends when you need to summon one more monster or something, or do one more card effect. Time ends. It's not like, oh, I'm higher in life, I win. It's just, you just lose. Like... That's wrong, I feel like, right? Like, why is life point at least not relevant in this? I feel like life point should be relevant, even in game 2, no? Is that a weird take? Again, I'm not, like, super passionate about this in the sense that I'm just a content creator making as much discussion out of this as possible, but, like, just from the perspective of gameplay, it just seems like, well, at least if you're winning game 2, you should, like, you know? Life point should never have been relevant for time. Life point being relevant makes burning dumb. But, like, but then what's the alternative? You're just sitting there with game on board and you just lose? At least if you can get one attack in, you win, no? Surely that's better than just insta-lose, end of chain link, right? Like, because that's the alternative. I don't know, man. Whoever has more cards in hand. Hey, listen, at recess, in the playgrounds at school, if there was no winner by the end of recess, it was whoever had the most cards in their graveyard. Or sorry, the least cards in their graveyard. Because they lost less cards, you know? Less guys died. So you would win because your opponent had more cards in the grave, so they lost more monsters. So you're the winner by the end of recess. That's the children's time rules. Okay, maybe we got to bring that back. If duelist has won one duel and the match is concluded after 50 minutes, both duels will receive a double loss. Does this mean double loss or double match loss? Yeah. So again, does anyone? Is it just me who thinks that double game loss would have been better? I don't know if like I guess I'd have to think about it even more and try and poke holes in the theory, but it feels like double loss should be better than double match loss. Because at least that way, like, there's a guaranteed winner, but I don't know. I guess that sort of just brings back the same problems as before with slow play. I don't know. I think that the quote-unquote best outcome for this is that in the previous time rules, if you were winning, you were always in control. If you are the winner of game 1, you are always in control of this duel, even if you're losing game 2. Because at any point, you can just go, scoop, game 3, burn, right? Provided there's enough time on the clock for you to play out enough time to burn, but not enough time for your opponent to get a turn. You see what I'm saying? So you always had that autonomy. Now, it balances that out a little bit to some extent because player 1 doesn't have full control anymore. Because even if you're winning game 1 as player 1, you still need to like play like the rest of the match to win the game too. So I guess that's good because it is incentivizing everyone to play faster, not just like player 2. If a duelist has won one duel and has not cleared after 50 minutes, blah blah. Yeah, so this was the double match loss thing that we were clarifying. Turning Yu-Gi-Oh into Prisoner's Dilemma is incredibly thematic. I don't really like this change. It means it just means you're screwed if your opponent plays a combo deck or a niche deck that you have to keep reading their cards for. This is just not true for combo decks, right? Combo decks should not be going to time. If you're in a combo deck, the idea is that you're playing essentially an FTK with extra steps. Your opponent either completely stops you from comboing, or you auto-win because you push through and make your full board, right? Kind of. I feel like, in theory, that's how a combo duel should go. I guess the issue is when it comes to, like, you get hand-trapped enough that you make a combo board, but it's like half a combo board, and then your opponent cracks it, and then you have some resources to play turn 4. I guess that's where some of the grind games can come from in combo decks. This incentivizes auto-surrendering winnable games if you're in a slightly losing position and rushing through plays. While I didn't like the old time rules either, this feels like trading one problem for a different one. This is kind of the... Well, okay, so first of all, that's kind of maybe been a case already. Incentivizing auto-surrendering winnable games just because you're in a slightly losing position. This has kind of been the case already, to be fair. It's just like dialed up to 11 now. I'm not really pleased with conceptually. In theory, it just doesn't sound like a good situation where you are winning a game and you basically just have to like scoop because there's a chance you lose, and you're just in a better position in game 3 because you need to go first in game 3. You need to do your combo. You need to have enough time to do your combo, to do your plays. Then your opponent needs to have a turn so that you can go to turn 3 and deal lethal damage. Because it's not enough to be ahead in life points anymore. Life points are basically irrelevant now. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, life points just don't matter now. Someone you were at my locals thought I was bored of his Mimigo combo because I scooped early in game 2 rather than thinking I wanted to save time. How long is a Mimigo combo? Not that long, is it? Life points matter is a traditional old dated take. Not that it's wrong, though. Well, no. Life points are very relevant in the end of time procedures. My question is, now, life points don't matter after these changes, specifically. It's a similar issue to before, but it's better overall. I think it's taking some power away from game 1 winner, which is good. Winning game 1 and still getting a total match loss because game 2 isn't finished will tilt so many people off the face of the earth. True, true. Does this mean if you're 1-0 and have higher life in game 2 when time is called, you still both lose? Yep, that's the problem. This is the biggest issue, I think, right? You could win game 1, and you're basically winning game 2, and you're in a commanding position, but you're still going to lose. That's rough. I just hope this doesn't hit locals. Got a bunch of new players in my locals. We constantly go to time because they're still learning and everyone wants to take the time to teach them and make sure they're having fun. The current time rules means that the competitive players can make sure they both have fun and not screw up their results. But this would make people have to go, I'm really sorry, full combo against someone who's hoping to get into the game. At a regional level, it seems fair though. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe in a world, maybe at some level or some degree, Yu-Gi-Oh! Locals need like their own set of rules or time rules or something based off of the locals. I don't know. That's a different discussion though. Anyway, yeah. So as Gage said, the next update is Konami will just they'll just put you in a mine. You have to go to a work camp for game 4. So that's gonna be the next stage. See you guys then.